Hey there, amplifiers. Excited to be kicking off today as we're talking to yet another amplified advisor, someone who has the attitude, expertise, and drive to continually take new actions and achieve new results, and more importantly, help other people take needed actions to get to where they want to go. David Steele is a wealth manager, restaurateur, artist, and entrepreneur on a unique track record on building high-impact businesses in finance, hospitality, and the arts. He leads One Wealth Advisors, an independent RIA firm with about $1 billion assets under management, and operates some of San Francisco's most acclaimed restaurants under Flower Plus Water Hospitality Group. David, thank you for joining Growth Amplifiers today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, for sharing your knowledge and expertise. And we're talking about, some of the things that you could take that could help you take things to the next level. But one of the ways that we try to start off by getting real is take us to a time and place on your journey that maybe was a challenge that you faced and was a pivotal point in your career to help you get to where you're at today.
Well, I mean, the most profound pivotal moment for me was when I got out of college after having worked in restaurants all through high school and college. I embarked upon trying to build a practice with clients in financial services. Back then, I was a stockbroker selling investment products. I was an effective and persuasive salesperson. That is to say, I was able to get people to do business with me, but I didn't really know what I was doing, and I wasn't adding value to people's lives. And I was unhappy, even though I started making money and knew that my financial future was probably going to be pretty bright. And so I made I had, I guess, pretty good self-awareness in my 20s to assess that my unhappiness was because I wasn't adding value to people's lives. I was just a salesman. And so I decided to make the pivot from a financial product salesperson to a fee-based advisor. And you mentioned earlier that I have an RIA. It's Registered Investment Advisory Firm. What a registered investment advisory firm is, we're legal fiduciaries who have to put our clients' interest above our own. I started doing that in my 20s. I took about a 60 to 70% pay cut from going from a salesperson to a fee-based advisor, but I was happy. So I made a lot less money, but I was much, much happier. And then I began building what is now our business. It was just me at the time. My brother joined me as my business partner, my first hire, a few years into the business. But we built it the right way, sort of one client at a time. And, we have almost $1.2 billion in assets under management now, but that was after having made that pivot. I got in the business 34 years ago. I think I made the pivot starting about 30 years ago. So we're an overnight 30-year success. So that was probably the most pivotal moment for me.
And you mentioned earlier that one of the things that you think probably could help people out the most is building your business around values. Can you share a little bit more insights of what that means to you and why you think it's such helpful advice for others?
Well, I mean, this may not, it's depending upon the moment in the listener's career they're at, this is going to either resonate with them or not, probably. And if you're not actually helping people, you're going to be unhappy. And if you're making money not helping people, it's going to feel empty. So I think it's just critically important to make sure that whatever it is you're doing in business and whatever business you're trying to amplify, just make sure you're truly, you can look in the mirror and say, I am, in fact, adding value to people's lives. And I think that, unfortunately, there's a lot of businesses out there where people damn well know that they're more parasitic and not adding value. Unfortunately, there's lots of industries, I'm not going to name them, but there's lots of industries that I would say generally are pretty parasitic. And in the financial services world, there's lots of players that are pretty parasitic. So I don't know. Does that answer your question?
I think it does. I think you've got to have a bigger purpose. Just making money, just checking the box while that can lead to making money, while they can build a business around it, people can build an empire and then have a hollow feeling and feel like this doesn't feel right. I don't feel fulfilled. But if you're making an impact in people's lives and you're making an impact in your team's lives, your clients' lives, that has a big ripple effect, and that could be huge. So designing a business that's based off actually providing value and really helping people, imagine that. When you give more, it comes back to you. So it creates a positive cycle. So I think that's really important. And I know some people, they're learning, they're taking traction, and then maybe they run into that dip. What kept you going when you were experiencing tough times, whether it's like, through the past several decades, we've had downturns. I'm sure that had to be interesting to navigate. What's kept you moving through those tough times when maybe things were going in the wrong direction?
I am a big believer in goal setting. I'm not a huge fan of material, superficial goals. I suppose buying a home, on the one hand, seems like it's material, but on the other hand, the idea of a home is a lot more dynamic. Where I'm going with this is I've never had financial goals. I want to be a millionaire by a certain time, or I want my business to grow to this amount of revenue by a certain time. I try to dissuade myself and my team away from celebrating wins and losses and instead celebrating systematic behaviors. When I started in the business in the early 90s, I was cold calling people, trying to get them to eventually take a meeting with me. And if I got a meeting or ultimately won a client, I didn't allow myself to get happy or feel good. If I was unsuccessful at getting a meeting where I unfortunately lost a client, I didn't allow myself, or I tried to not allow myself to get upset. Rather, I focused on, did I make the certain number of dials that day? We haven't picked up the phone and marketed for new business in over 15 years. So one would say, well, that systematic behavior is over. But now, if we get a client or lose a client, obviously it's less statistically impactful on our company because we're much more seasoned, we're bigger. But truthfully, every day there's systematic behavior you can look at, which is the number of meetings you had, the number of effective meetings you had. Did you empty your inbox? I mean, there's all kinds of systematic behaviors you can celebrate rather than celebrating wins and losses. So I think for me, because I've always had that mindset, I can always look to, okay, what are my systematic behaviors? And did I do those today, this week, this month, this year? And therefore I have something to feel good about no matter what's going on in terms of, results.
I'm a big fan of Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, and the be, do, have. And a lot of times people will start focusing on the haves, right? The physical thing that they want, the tangible, the material. And the concept, for those who may not be familiar with it, is you don't focus on the have. You don't set goals for the have. You focus on yourself and developing yourself. You got to be the right person, so you're taking the right actions so you can get the right result. And I like what you're saying there is you can be focused on the wrong things. You need to become a better version of yourself. Develop yourself first. And then when you have focus on taking the right actions, the right habits, reducing the ones that aren't working for you, you're going to be doing the right things, which can then lead you to the things that you want. So it's kind of flipped in reverse of what you focus on. But what is a practical tactic or habit that has made a big difference for you on your journey?
Well, I treat every day my calendar. I heard a saying that you are your calendar. And so the big variable in my life that I think I could probably point to be most effective at creating success for me is I time block every 30 minutes of my day, which includes meals with people I love, which includes exercise almost every day, sometimes a couple of hours a day, actually, given the sports that I do. And of course, it involves work. It involves watching a movie with somebody I love. I mean, it's all on my calendar. And so I would urge everybody to consider being super disciplined about managing the calendar. My email inbox, I have an empty inbox policy every day, so I don't go to sleep until my inbox is empty. And people say, "Well, what about stuff you need?" Well, I put it in folders. They say, "What about stuff you need on certain days?" I say, "Well, I give myself a calendar reminder that day." And so I am constantly harmonizing my email inbox, which many people use as unresolved tasks. I move those unresolved tasks to the extent that I couldn't resolve them in a given day over my calendar, either at a particular time, if it's something that is a task that has to be done at exact time, or an all-day event, which then becomes my task list for that day. And so the harmonization between, again, managing my calendar, time blocking every 30 minutes of every day, and then having an empty inbox that harmonizes with my calendar. There's a relationship between those two, probably is the number one thing I'd attribute my success to.
I think it's very helpful because we could all, without a process or a framework, we can be spending a lot of times on things that feel like we're doing something productive, but aren't really the most important ones. A lot of times people in their email will just go from the top to bottom and they'll burn a lot of hours. Over the weekend, I was listening to Gino Wickman's new book, Shine, and it inspired me to put a little bit more structure to my inbox. And so I set up some filters and actually used GPT to set up some scripts using Google Scripts, and bucketed all my emails into my primary emails, so like clients and family, those that need reply, and then everything else. And it's amazing, within a short amount of time, you can save hours of your day just by having a better process. So if you haven't done that yet, considering making sure that you are filtering your emails, you're using technology, so you're not just spending a lot of time just going through meaningless emails. There's a better way to be done, and the technology is out there to get it done. So if you're tuning in, make sure that you're thinking about how you can save more time. Speaking of books, Shine was, again, Gino Wickman, who's the writer of EOS. Is there a book that has made a difference for you that you really like and would recommend to others?
Well, I mean, the two books that changed my life the most, one is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Read it. If you haven't read it, read it. Full stop. Read it. And the second is The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama.
Oh, it's been maybe like 15, 20 years. I think my sister bought me that book, and I really do appreciate that. And I will say, sometimes we might read something that impacts us, and then we think, oh, I know this information, or I read that, or I already have this information. But I encourage people to come with a beginner's mind. Even if you know something, sometimes once your journey has changed, how you experience it, how you relate to it, how it applies to your world at this moment is different. So even if you've heard something in the past, don't think you know it all. Have an open mind to get a fresh perspective, to see how your inner world could be improved today. In that book, The Art of Happiness, do you recall something that you pulled from that really made an impact on you?
Oh, and I think it relates to the Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. My takeaway is very similar. In How to Win Friends and Influence People, my number one takeaway is there's something in there that talks about the most interesting people are the ones who do the least amount of talking and the most listening. And the people, Dale Carnegie argues that the people who are most liked and the people who are found most interesting tend to be the ones that ask the most questions when they're engaging with people, which I think which celebrates somebody's humanity. When you're asking somebody a question about themselves and you let them talk, you're really saying you're valuable, you matter. From The Art of Happiness, my biggest takeaway is one concept, and I think it's very much a Buddhist concept, which is a way to make yourself feel happier or less sad is by finding empathy with others. And one of the things, we all do this when you see somebody, you think they're dressed in a funny way, or maybe they're, I don't know, physically unusual to you. overweight, whatever, you may have thoughts to yourself like, what is this person wearing? What are they, a fool? Or, oh man, the person should hit the gym or whatever. And in this book, it argues when you have those thoughts, allow them, acknowledge them, but also try to turn your attention to their suffering. And because we all suffer. And by turning our attention to somebody's suffering, we can, it's the ultimate form of empathy. It's the easiest path to empathy, which has a bit of a calming effect, I think. At least did for me.
Mm-hmm.
And an interesting thing happened with me where when I've had those thoughts, I would make myself focus on people suffering, which is not specific. I don't know exactly what makes them suffer the most, but we all suffer. And I got so annoyed with myself for going through these mental gymnastics that I found myself doing it less, having those thoughts less frequently over the years. So it does require work, but I find myself to be a person who's far more at peace now that I think far less frequently negative thoughts about people.
I think that's beautiful. I read the book Positive Intelligence, and it talked about how we have the judge of ourselves, of others, and circumstance. And just by having that awareness that we judge a lot, you can reduce the tendency of judging others and just be one with others. And it's a beautiful thing. For those who are tuning in, if you could share just a little bit more about Win Wealth Advisors, who you help and how you help them, that would be great.
We're a traditional financial planning firm. We are fiduciaries, which represents, I think, around 8% of the industry. 92% of the financial advisory industry are non-legal fiduciaries. That is to say, they don't have to put their clients' interests above their own or their firms, which is shocking when you hear me word it that way, but go look it up. That's what it means. We are legal fiduciaries. And what we specifically do, we call it financial life planning, which is an integration of all of the areas of one's financial life: trust and estate planning, tax planning, investment management, risk management, pretty much every area of somebody's financial life. We try to create a cohesive strategic plan for the client from the outset, and then there's a consistent implementation and iterative process around that plan. That is to say, oftentimes people go through life events requiring a complete restructuring or concepting of the plan. And so that's what we do. We do it for an annual fee rather than for commissions for transactions. We have about 400 clients. We manage about $1.2 billion in assets. And like I said earlier, we're by referral only. But if occasionally I appear on a podcast and we get an email. So if they want to reach me, they can reach me at, I have a website that talks about all my other entrepreneurial endeavors, including restaurants. That's at davidsteele.xyz, davidsteele.xyz.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And I encourage people just to connect with other people, explore what other people are doing. You get a fresh perspective. It could change what becomes possible. And sometimes you might learn something that maybe not impact you, but it could help those you serve. Speaking of which, you've learned a lot on your journey. You've shared some great insights already. One of the ways we close these sessions is to think about and if you would be so kind as to share something you've learned on your journey that might be helpful for someone on theirs. It could be related to finances. It could be related to anything in life, just something that's floating up at this particular moment.
Anybody who's heard me on a podcast before is probably going to get annoyed with me continuing to say the same thing over and over again. But I'm going to say it because I believe it deeply. And I think human beings really only seek two things after they have their base needs met, which is to feel loved and valued, and to love and value others, because I think that makes us feel loved and valued. And so whenever we're having any interaction with any human being we know, don't know, we're having friction with or not friction with, if we think about our interaction with them or our relationship with them through the lens of their motivation really is they just want to feel valued, they just want to feel loved, it becomes a lot easier to be in harmony with people. So that's my advice. Just, I don't mean to get political, but let's just say we look at Donald Trump through the lens of a man who maybe was seeking his father's love and didn't quite get it. And then we look at some of his persona and his behaviors. Again, whether you're a fan or not a fan, if you're buying what I'm selling on that, it sort of starts to explain a lot of his behaviors and maybe anybody who's in the public eye as well. I'm able to find empathy with people when, even if I disagree with their approach.
I think it's important to do that, to find the middle ground and look at people not as the labels, not as classifications, but as other humans who are on this joined experience, who are trying their best to navigate in their world. And a lot of times they've been fed material and perspectives that might put you on the opposite side, or an enemy or an other, but we're all majority more related. We're all majority on the same path. We're on the same planet. So it doesn't do us any good to hold on to poison, to hold on to hate, to hold on what divides us. It does much better to find the common ground, what makes us related, what helps us serve a better purpose together. So David, that was very inspiring and a fresh reminder just to win friends and focus on servicing people. Providing value can be one of the biggest ways that you can build your empire. You don't need to find the silver bullet. You just need to know your unique gift, serve your higher purpose, and provide value to others. Thank you so much for your time, for sharing your insights. Appreciate you for doing that. Thank you.
That's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
To show your support, take a moment to amplify this message by sharing it online. To connect with me or gain more business growth insights, visit www.growthamplifiers.com. Thank you for your support.